Wow. Honestly, I've never seen anything like this. In 8 years in crypto, I've never seen a crash as sharp and as fast as the one we experienced yesterday. It was a real bloodbath. Bitcoin lost nearly $10,000. Now it's starting to recover. Let's take a look at the daily candle, by the way. In my opinion, we would need a strong reversal candle to forget about yesterday and potentially head north again, at least in the short term. As for the medium and long term, nothing is certain, but in just 24 hours, quite simply, Bitcoin lost nearly $10,000. The most worrying thing about all this isn't just the price, it's the state of the market. What is the state of the market? Especially psychologically. The on-chain metrics are clear. And they simply describe a market that is more fragile than it was during the FTX era. And it reminds us of the end of 2022, which was quite chaotic, and even more fragile than during COVID, which is why I chose my thumbnail, COVID 2.0. And precisely the parallel is important because in those moments, Bitcoin has never, it often disappears. People consider it dead. They bury it, forget about it, sell everything at a loss, and then things clear up. But precisely stay until the end because I'm going to show you an indicator that's converging toward the zone that preceded the biggest dips in history. By the way, I was watching yesterday's club live stream. If you want me to share with you a clip from the club about what I said in terms of mindset, in terms of the strategy to adopt now, leave me the word live in the comments and I'll share that with you in Sunday's video. So, okay, first of all, if we take a look at the chart, the panic is very clear. In any case, it's obvious. Yesterday, Bitcoin broke through its oldest all-time high from 2021 and even went down to $60,000, almost $59,000. We can actually check the wick. Here we were almost at $59,000, which is still a psychological support level. But it's bouncing back now and it's rebounding by $10,000. We're going from 60,000 to 70,000. It's not over yet. So this is an extremely violent move. Bitcoin hasn't been spared and neither has Ethereum because it dropped below $2,000 for the first time since May 2025. So the million-dollar question is, why is it collapsing so quickly? Tell me your opinion in the comments before I tell you why. But this isn't an isolated crash. We've seen stocks also go down, precious metals have dropped, and oil is down as well. This is the classic sign that the market is reducing its exposure. It's about risk, the famous risk off, right? It's like an on-off switch when it comes to risk. And crypto is the first victim. It's the most volatile, the youngest, the most promising, the best performing in recent years, even if that's been contradicted in the past few months. And on top of that, there's a wave of completely irrational events on social media. And on Twitter, on X, which is a very toxic platform. I'm going to look for information about that. So I see things going by. You see completely crazy theories. People are talking about Epstein, who is supposedly Satoshi. Bullshit. They're talking about Saylor going bankrupt. Bullshit. He actually reassured everyone in a meeting yesterday. He said that Bitcoin could drop as low as $8,000, which in my opinion won't happen anymore unless there's a major catastrophe or something similar. And actually, they had reserves until 2032 or even further. There was also talk about USDT, which supposedly had 10 pegs. We also remember USDE, which had 10 pegs. By the way, on October 10th, the infamous crash. There was also talk about quantum computing killing Bitcoin. And we're talking about a video from several years ago where there's that famous guy who says, Bitcoin, we go to zero right now. We go to fucking zero. Someone shared that video with me again, along with today's chart. So excuse me, but we've seen a lot of nonsense on social media. I don't like to be vulgar, but sometimes you have to call things what they are. And actually, tons of you were talking to me about it on Insta. By the way, there are nearly 100,000 of us on Insta, 99,500 to be exact. Feel free to join me there because I also share lots of information and behind the scenes content, a little bit about the channel and some information. I try to give you as much value as possible there. So behind the scenes of the channel and about my investments. And to get back to the panic in the market, it's obvious, not just from the price, because you can also see it in the fear and greed index. You saw it in the thumbnail, it dropped to 5. That's the lowest level since it was created. The lowest 5, we've never seen it that low before. And this kind of extreme reading, precisely when the majority throws in the towel, and I see people giving up, it's a shame. Because that's exactly when you need to hold on, that's when you need to reload, that's when you need to buy. I'll actually refer you to the video I released this morning, which I put out quickly, precisely because I think it's the right time and it will still be the right time for weeks and weeks. Because in my opinion, we might potentially see a rebound. Why not? We might even drop lower again, potentially. We just don't know. But on the other hand, actually, we're not going to head north. We're not going to hit $100,000 or retest the all-time high in just a few days. Or maybe we will. Why not? Because if we look, for example, at February 2024, we had a big drop here. So we went from $47,000 down to $38,000. And then we had the famous rally of February 2024. If we use the ruler, we climb back up very quickly, almost 90% in just about 2 or 3 months. So anything is possible, but you need to have a strategy in place. And that's what I'm talking to you about in this morning's video, which I'll send you again at the end. But let's go back a bit to all the different elements. No one knows where the next support is, nor when the market will really take a breather. And often, actually, like I said, we get a bit trapped, bounce back here, then drop again. That is, we start moving up again, hoping for the best. Here, at 70,000, people are saying, wow, we're on the way back up. And then we might get crushed again, possibly. That's often what happens. I'm not saying that's what will happen, but it's potentially what could happen. So there will be a strategy for the short to medium term, 3, 6, 9 months. I'm telling you about it. In this morning's video, go check it out. And a plan and a strategy, it's very simple to stick to, okay? And that's how we're going to come out with winners on the channel. That's what I want. When everything's going well, when everything's green, everyone's happy, etc. But in the end, we've been crushed for 2 years. Right now, we're at a low point. I feel like saying a swear word that starts with a B. But so you take that swear word and you add buy now for 3 to 6 months. And then come back to the channel in 3 to 6 months. And then you'll tell me, hey, Julian, that video from February 6th, the video from this morning, it changed my life. It was very simple. I put it into practice. I stuck to the plan. $1, $2, $5, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Depending on your means, are we going to make it out? Winner. Anyway, and if everything is shaking at the same time, it's because the macro environment itself is deteriorating. The American economy is sending clearer and clearer recession warnings. We often hear about warnings, crashes, and so on. It's true that we're on a tightrope. The American economy is on a tightrope, no matter what you see, what you hear, what Trump says, because he says a lot of Anyway, but right now, concretely, what's happening? Jobs. There are more and more layoffs. Job openings are at their lowest since 2023. The real estate market has more sellers than there are buyers. Okay, the famous supply and demand, and the gap is becoming huge. In the midst of all this, you have the Fed, which is still pretty cautious, with the new chairman Walsh, who isn't that pro-crypto. He is, but not so pro-liquidity, and QE isn't going to happen overnight. He's more focused on trying to save the Fed's balance sheet than anything else. So when liquidity is under pressure, you know this now if you follow daily and you're loyal, and thank you for your loyalty. There are many of you watching the videos, many supporting me. Despite what's happening, despite the very negative atmosphere, I have a golden community. And for that, thank you. You give me incredible strength to give my all every day, to try to create content for you, to alert you, to tell you things honestly, with complete transparency and authenticity. So thank you for that. Thank you to everyone who subscribes, who likes, who leaves comments. It really makes me happy. But as I was saying, when liquidity is under pressure and crypto is on the front line, as usual, well, price, that's it. First and foremost, and that's the case right now. On the indicator side, we have a very strong signal. We have Bitcoin's RSI. I was talking about it on the live yesterday. We analyzed the RSI from top to bottom. It reached its third lowest level ever on Coinbase. I'll zoom in here so you can pause it if you want. But if we look at the only 2 periods when it was even lower, that's the 2018 bottom. And again, you have to check if it's on the daily or the weekly because we don't have exactly the same numbers, but it's very clear. It's the same bottom as in 2018. It's just like the COVID crash in March 2020. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to turn around immediately or that we're going to see a rally right away. Why not? Everyone would take that. But still, you have to position yourself. Today, I feel like I haven't been centered on the camera this whole time, but it's not a big deal. But historically, this zone only appears at rare times, right in the heart of major low points, in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of fear and panic, just like right now. And while the market is panicking, some people stay cool-headed. That's what you have to do. You have to stay cool. You have to zoom out from all the negativity, the possible losses, and so on. You put that away in a drawer, like I mentioned in yesterday's live stream, move on to something else. Be creative, set up a strategy, educate yourself, learn. People with experience, that's how you'll grow and come out even stronger. So you have to stay cool, and they look at the models, because according to JP's models, Morgan, the balance of power between Bitcoin and gold is shifting based on mathematics. Their point is as follows. Bitcoin's volatility has normalized enough for it to become a mathematical equivalent. We've seen it with gold, we've seen it with silver, but it's a mathematical equivalent of gold, except this time in digital form for long-term allocation. That's what they're saying, and that's what they're going to keep hammering home in the coming weeks. And they have even more reason. If there's a rally from now on, they'll tell you, we told you so, why didn't you do it? Regrets, remorse, you know how it goes. And when their model aligns the risk profile and a target around $170,000, that's what they say comes out. That's what they call the gradual demonetization of gold. And gold keeps its story, but Bitcoin has the structure of a digital economy more connected to 2026. All right? 2026, it's not about gold, even if gold goes up. Maybe this is its last rally. And for a while, we talked about it during yesterday's live with some VIP guests. Gold at one point stagnated for quite a long time. I wish the same future for Bitcoin. Volatility, stagnation, whatever. But at some point, it's going to go parabolic. Whether it's in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, it's going to happen. It's undeniable because it's a beautiful technology, it's innovative, and it's only been around for a very short time. So this FUD, this extreme volatility, this fear in the market, it's all completely normal. But you really have to have a long-term vision. And that brings us to a key point. Who is buying while retail investors are panicking? Because the data shows very clearly that the aggregate exposure of hedge funds in crypto is at its highest level in 2 years. In other words, take a look at the chart here. It's telling the most sophisticated players are reloading on everything. On what? On Bitcoin. The noise makes people sell. The pros accumulate. Is this market manipulation? You tell me. Potentially. That's often how it goes, by the way, in every purge phase. Was the purge premeditated? Was it planned so that institutions could finally buy at very low prices? Because let me remind you, ETFs were approved in January 2024. We were around 45,000. It shot up very quickly in March 2024 to 74,000. Did they really have time to position themselves? Did they really have time to buy at that moment? Well, no. They didn't get any low points. Now, they finally have a low point, and they're buying back like crazy. By the way, if we look a little, like I was telling you, February 2024, 2 years ago, did we have this rally? 88%. I'm not going back over that because there are other elements as well which are very important. And I'll finish with this indicator. There are also 2 or 3 other very important pieces of information. But I want you to keep this in mind. One of the most reliable ways to estimate the bottom zone, what is it? It's to observe the convergence between the supply and profit and the supply and loss. Now, this might seem a bit technical to you, but stay with me because it's actually very simple. Every time the 2 curves meet, so we saw this in 2015, we saw it in 2019, we saw it in March 2020 during COVID, and we also saw it in November 2022, the market was coming out of a total extreme purge. And it was laying the same foundations for a major reversal. Why? Because at that moment, there is no longer any consensus. At that moment, there are just as many winners as losers. The market is exhausted. The market has been drained of speculative excess, of leverage. And today we are once again approaching that zone, which historically was the best time to invest. I mean, when you have an RSI at its lowest, when you have a fear and greed index that's never been so low, when you have all these on-chain indicators, what do? Well, it's not a button. Like buy now, it's buy now and for several weeks, for multiple weeks. Because historically, that's often the end of the pain and often the beginning of the rebuilding phase. I'll get there. It will take time. It will hurt. And if you don't have a strategy, don't panic. I'll refer you to the video I released this morning. Go watch it because I break it down for you. Exactly what to do, exactly what I'm doing. Go watch it now. It's the strategy to adopt to cut out all the noise. And remember, leave the word live in the comments. Join me on Instagram. See you tomorrow for a new video. Ciao.